Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to go over the PVE tier list that I have been trying and working on for the past 2 days. I didn't really know how to properly make it so it makes sense or is understandable, so this is what I came to conclusion. So we have S plus tier, which basically means these heroes are used in everything, every single PvE in this game. That means every literally thing that is Celestial Trials, Rift Odyssey, Lost City, Palace of Penrose, Forgotten Lands. These heroes do excel at least one of those mentioned things. For example, Diana or other Gaia would be S plus tier in one of these. That's why they're here. Now, not all of them who excel at most of them, for example, in Celestial Trials, you can cheese out the Dungeon Maniac to 150 with just Leviathan, but she's not S plus tier because she's not able to cheese out every single trial and not every single content in this game, and she doesn't really provide any kind of buffs apart from the content she can manage to cheese, which is often Rift Odyssey, Celestial Trials, and some of the Forgotten Lands trials. So that's why the S plus tier heroes are pretty much the heroes that you will always find use in every single PvE in the game. Victoria can often be S plus as well depending on the state of the season. She's often used in Rift Odyssey still over some other heroes. So Lucifer, as we know, can pretty much finish every single content as of right now. Hela can also in a way, but Lucifer is just far more easier to do with. Pandora is the first and main DPS in this game, followed by Arcane Dorabella, which is really close in comparison. I know people have cleared Celestial Trials recently using Arcane Dorabella over Pandora, so they're both pretty much in the same tier now, although Pandora is still the one of the favorites because she's more used and more reliable than Arcane Dorabella. But if you have a stronger account that can actually scale up Arcane Dorabella, because Pandora scales up on her own because of her skill, if you can scale up Arcane Dorabella with other things such as Yorm or Elisha, she will also be a match for Pandora. Yorm is the best support in the game, starting at 7 stars with full legendary runes. No hero can compare to her, apart from the Fate heroes, which I'm no longer going to mention. They are just simply the best PvE buffers in the game. So Yorm is the first legendary hero that is not Fate and is the best support in the game. In the second lineup, it's Elisha. She's basically Yorm but slightly weaker. She has also flat stats, she has freeze, so she's used in a lot of trials, especially in the Celestial Trials, Rift Odyssey, and Palace of Penrose. Gaia is still S plus tier because I do believe she's still usable in all of these trials, as well as Diana, but keep in mind Diana can be replaced with Ophelia easily. Diana is better since we are ranking these heroes at their max star level and at their best states, but Ophelia can fulfill this role even better sometimes because Ophelia does have a bind counter, which is often needed for the Corrupt Spring because it does require a bind counter, for example. I can easily finish these trials, I just refuse to so I can test out the newest heroes. So if I finish all of these trials, I will later regret it like I did the last two, so because I won't be able to test out the new heroes in those trials. Dahlia is still one of the best supports, but nowadays to match the strength of these heroes that are supports, she does require legendary runes and she is not really usable anymore, or rather not showing up in Rift Odyssey and other contents. That's why she's at the last of this tier. Whereas Trupus has gained value back because of Lucifer, because Lucifer doesn't have pledge on her own, but the Trupus does. Pairing a Trupus and Lucifer is the best combo you can do in this game. Another thing you can pair them with is Ayushta, which will basically double the ultimate of the Trupus and any other skill. So yeah, that's one of the better combos in PvE, especially in Palace of Penrose. You will see it in clear records later because I believe Farb has been using it for quite some time. So Ophelia is a weaker version of Diana, but Ophelia is cheap and free-to-play player friendly. Eudora is the third or fourth DPS hero by the rankings, so after Pandora, Arcane Dorabella, it's Eudora for sure because of how many damage ticks she does. but she's no longer required, well, because there's two better heroes, and she's only usable in contents that require 3 teams, for example like Palace of Penrose, but even there you don't have to really use her anymore because it's mostly Mystifiers now with Eve. Then we have Hades and Wuzetian, which are pretty much Lost City merchants, or yeah, Lost City merchants, Palace of Penrose merchants, and sometimes in Rift Odyssey, but not often. They're not as used in Celestial Trials, so yeah, maybe they should be in the cheesy peaks actually. But I do believe Wuzetian is the best of them all because of the Lost City requirement. With her, or rather without her, you can't really survive the survival stages. Then we have Cleopatra, the worst Fate hero as of right now. She's not even a Fate hero, she's Oath hero, but you don't have to pull her anymore at all because you don't really need her. The other Fate heroes and even the normal heroes are better supports than her, and she's only usable in contents like Tombs where you actually do need pledge heroes to pass it, or in Primeval Realm, which is not really the case anymore. Leviathan, I talked about her in mostly in the cheesy peaks, so I will also move her down. And then we have Venus, the newest hero. She's really strong. Her issue is the cap on her HP to, or rather healing to damage conversion. It's not written, but it's there, you can feel it. But nonetheless, she provides a lot of additional ultimates to the teams, and she can be found in Lost City and Palace of Penrose, and I will probably assume she will be in Rift Odyssey shining there as well. Odin, I do believe Odin is also worthy of the cheesy picks instead of the multi-teams, because Odin is mostly used in cheesy Rift Odyssey teams and sometimes in the Celestial Trials, but apart from that, she's just here if you need a Holy Shield or Holy Armor removed. Mulan is also one of the best supports, although now slightly worse because Burn has slightly lost its value as much as additional actions have gained value, so she's still great, she's still exceptional, but there's better heroes than her. Tsukuyomi, pretty much the same can be said about her. She's just a weaker and more heavy on the synergy version of Yorm and Elisha. And Eve is the third or fourth, depending on Eudora's Eve, DPS hero in the game, but she does require certain Mystifiers to actually reach the numbers. But apart from that, she can pretty much match all of these DPS heroes, so that's why she's in the multi-teams. You can use her in the Lost City, Rift Odyssey, Palace of Penrose, and perhaps even in some Forgotten or Celestial Trials. I didn't really run her a lot. I did on alt account try her in the Celestial Trials, and she was quite good at around level 60s. Then we move to the S tier cheesy picks, which I talked about these heroes. Then we have Astrid. Astrid is not as run anymore as she was, but if you need additional pledge cast, she's quite good there because additional pledge is more attack, and yeah, she's quite good, especially with her legendary runes, but they are no longer as valuable as they used to be. Behemoth also is in the cheesy picks because you can make her die in the Lost City to gain stats for the allies. And then Babylon, I do believe she will be in cheesy picks, but maybe she will be a tier lower, I'm not entirely sure yet. Her HP to damage conversion will be a lot harder to proc than Venus because your heroes actually have to take damage and then heal up to gain the stats. Hades is one of the better PvE heroes. Once he gets legendary runes, he can pretty much kill entire enemy team as long as you keep him alive by just simply eating them. Then we have A tier, which is a not ideal but will work tier heroes, so you can use these heroes in the multi-teams content. They will be good, they will work, but there are far better heroes in the tiers above, so that's why they're tier A. They're usable, they're niche, they will fill the synergy, but theirs are better options. So if you don't have these heroes, you can simply use these for the time being. Lilith is also one of the better heroes in PvE in Palace of Penrose, especially once she's with a lot of buffers. She will amplify those buffs by a lot. Then we have Rift Odyssey merchants, which is pretty much just heroes that are excelling in Rift Odyssey. Not always, maybe in some stages, maybe in some seasons, but they have been primarily shown to be Rift Odyssey merchants and have been excelling in such content. That's why they're in their respective own tier, and I won't be ranking them elsewhere because they are not really used elsewhere. Apart from Elohim and the Dorabella, they both are used in the other stages. You can use Elovin with Hela, they're quite good combo. Hela will gain 800% attack if you have Elovin ruined once she crits, which is easy to make. So Elovin and Hela have been a really good pair together if you're using them in PvE. Then we have Lost City EVs. This is pretty much just heroes I use for the Lost City. I don't use the other heroes I didn't mention in here. Daochan is one of the best the Downbringer units. Christine is usable in the Verdians. Emily, one of the better Shadow Arch. Merlin, if you're using the Verdians for the sustain or rather survival with the Monarchs. Albert for the Downbringers if you need him for the skill damage increase. Baisuk I don't really use her a lot. Sandra I use constantly, especially with her runes. Navi is one of the key heroes in the Verdians for the damage, and Lee as well for the sustain and damage. Twins I use only for the sustain. Katrina for the Downbringers with the Venus combo now because of the shields breaking and everything they do together. And then we have Marlena, which I often use in the Dawnbringers as well with her legendary runes. Alice is not something I use often, but I have tried her in the past. She works for the survival stages, but if you have other heroes like Lee, Monarchs and Navi, you won't likely use Alice. Busted I use constantly for the Shadow Arch with the 3 Mystifiers like Emily and Sandra with Busted, and then I use Lucifer or Wu Zetian for the sustain. Snow White is also a really good hero for the Lost City. You can use her because she does really insane damage. And then Mavis as a last hero, not really used anymore because she doesn't really deal damage there, but she's good for the sustain stages. And for the last tier we have the worst case scenario heroes. You won't ever really want to use these heroes. They have either fallen off or are not made for the PvE content. Even if they have been used in the past, like Talanis was one of the key heroes in the past for the PvE because she was a Glorian Monarch nowadays and because she had a 2-round stun. Nowadays, none of these heroes are really important in any kind of PvE. Seraphina is kind of gaining value back because of the Venus, but Venus, since she caps her healing to attack scaling, Seraphina doesn't really fulfill the role unless they bug fix the Venus to have infinite cap, then or rather no cap at all, then Seraphina will once again have some value. And for the last tier we have the skip heroes. Obviously the name says it all, don't use them at all, maybe in the first 10 days of the beginner's account, but even then that's a stretch. Maybe like 3 days you will use Temiz and Dashlin, but apart from that you won't use them at all. So even Macaria nowadays isn't as good as she was, but you can still use her in the Rift Odyssey because of her undying thingy with the 33% chance to negate the damage, and because she's a deviant, so she will survive quite the long. But yeah, these heroes are just simply better for the Rift Odyssey sustain, so you won't have any use for her outside of that. Celine was one of the best DPS heroes back in the like season 5, but nowadays he's just simply outdated and really doesn't shine anymore, despite being one of the best PvE heroes for the boss damage. And that's pretty much it. This is the tier list for the PvE campaign and everything in the PvE that is in the game. So hopefully this format has been a bit better and more understandable than the overall tier list. And yeah, I will perhaps make a PvP one as well, maybe not. It will be a bit difficult considering there's different foggy rules and everything and different kind of PvP. But yeah, apart from that, that's the tier list for PvE, and see you guys in the next one.